All right, so let's dive right into the world of Charles Dickens, and today we're taking a deep dive into Oliver Twist. We've got
Yes.
excerpts from the classic right here, and we're going to follow Oliver, like literally from his birth all the way through, the ups and downs to see what ultimately happens to him.
His fate, his
Yeah,
ultimate fate.
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be quite a journey. Buckle up. It's Dickensian London, folks.
And it's fascinating how Dickens starts us off right away. Right. He just throws us right into it.
Yeah.
Starting with Oliver's birth.
Oh, yeah.
In a workhouse.
Right.
Surrounded by, total neglect. He's barely clinging to life, this little baby.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't know, darkly comedic.
It is.
How he's, I think Dickens says he's almost coddled to death
Yeah.
by the very people who are supposed to be caring for him.
Right. It's like, oh, we're going to make sure this baby, but they're the ones almost doing him in.
I know. A drunken nurse and an indifferent surgeon talk about your unlikely heroes. But it really sets the stage for what this poor kid is up against.
Totally. It's like right away you understand this systemic neglect that defines Oliver's world.
Yeah.
And from there, it's just one hardship after another. It just seems like it never lets up.
Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, the baby farm, right, with Mrs. Mann.
Oh, yeah.
And Dickens doesn't hold back. He really portrays these,
Yeah.
kind of hypocritical characters,
Yes.
like Mr. Bumble,
Right.
who's supposed to be, in charge, but he's more concerned with himself
Oh, totally.
than with the children in his care.
It makes you wonder, was Dickens drawing on, real life experiences here? It just feels so real.
Oh, absolutely. Dickens was a very keen social observer.
Yeah.
And so this book, Oliver Twist, it's like this powerful indictment of the time. It's really hard-hitting.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, back to Oliver's story. So then he's apprenticed, right, to this undertaker.
Oh, gosh, Mr. Sourberry.
Mr. Sourberry.
Can you imagine a child sent to work with, coffins and all that?
I know. Grim, right?
It's too much. And then he gets, what? Locked in a cellar for fighting back against a bully. Dickens just, puts us through the ringer with this one.
He does. But there's a point to all this suffering.
Yeah.
Dickens wants us to see this brutal reality of what poverty and child exploitation was like. I mean, this was Victorian England,
Right.
But Oliver's not just a victim, remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, he escapes, right, from the Sourberries. And that's a turning point, right?
Yeah.
He's yearning for something better.
There's this, I don't know, glimmer of defiance in him. He just refuses to be crushed.
Exactly. He's not giving up. And that escape leads him to London.
Oh, boy. The big city.
Right. A sprawling metropolis. It's full of promise, but also peril, right? You never know what you're going to find around the corner.
So London's not just a, background here. It's a character itself shaping Oliver's destiny.
Precisely. Dickens uses these vivid descriptions to really immerse the reader,
Yeah.
You're right there with him. The sights, the sounds, even the smells of this crazy city.
Right.
And, well, guess who Oliver stumbles into in this urban jungle?
Oh, I think I know. Fagin, right? The master of all those young thieves.
The one and only.
Oh, man. The Artful Dodger.
Yeah.
And his whole crew of pickpockets.
It's like stepping into another world, right? This world of twisted rules. You have to throw out everything you thought you knew about morality here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we have this stark contrast, right? You have this supposed order of the workhouse, and then you have this underworld.
Right.
Where cunning and exploitation are the rules of the game.
It's a harsh lesson for Oliver, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
He's finally escaped one terrible situation and walks right into another one. But why do you think Dickens chose to portray this criminal underworld in such detail? What's he trying to say?
Well, I think it's this brilliant way of exposing the hypocrisy of, the whole Victorian society. Okay.
You have these institutions that claim to care for the poor,
Right.
like the workhouse, but then underneath, you have this world that preys on them.
It's like Dickens is saying, look, even in the shadows, there's a system. And it's just as bad as the one out in the open.
Yeah, exactly. And Oliver gets, he gets a job, I guess you could call it.
Right.
With the Dodger and Charlie Bates. They go pickpocketing, right?
Yeah.
And of course it ends disastrously.
Of course. I mean, this is Oliver. He's inherently good. The whole thing horrifies him.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, he gets caught.
And wrongly accused, of course.
Exactly.
That courtroom scene is, like, really crucial.
Yeah.
Despite all this evidence stacked against him, he keeps saying, no, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's like Dickens is showing us that even when everything's rigged against you, the truth can find a way.
Right.
And thankfully, Mr. Brownlow sees through the whole thing.
Yes. Mr. Brownlow, our beacon of hope.
He comes in, gives Oliver shelter, and you think, okay, finally, things are looking up for this kid.
Yeah, but this is Dickens.
Right.
He's not going to let us off that easy.
You're right.
Just as Oliver's starting to feel some sense of normalcy,
Yeah.
he gets snatched back into this dark world by Nancy.
Oh, Nancy. Talk about a fascinating character.
Right.
You never know what she's going to do next. There's this moral battle going on inside her.
Totally. She's part of the kidnapping, but you can also see she actually cares about Oliver.
Yeah.
It's like a tug of war between doing what she has to do to survive and her conscience.
Right, right.
A real Dickensian dilemma.
Totally.
And this whole thing, it sets the stage for, well, Oliver being forced into a burglary.
Oh, yeah, with Sikes?
With Sikes. The stakes just got a lot higher, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This is where things take a real dark turn. We've gone from pickpocketing to, like, serious crime.
Right.
And Oliver is trapped in the middle of it.
It makes you wonder how much one person can take. It's like Dickens is pushing him to the limit, testing his resilience. And then he gets shot, right? Trying to run away.
Yeah, another layer of tragedy. But you know what? He still doesn't give up.
Exactly. That fighting spirit, even when he's at his lowest point. And that's when Rose Maylie enters the picture.
Ah, yes. Rose. Another beacon of light in Oliver's journey.
She takes him in, offers him refuge. You think maybe, just maybe, he'll finally find some peace.
I'm right there with you, holding my breath, hoping this is it. But I know better. I know Dickens.
Yeah, you know Dickens better than that, because here comes Monks.
Oh, yeah, Monks.
This mysterious figure, and he's got bad intentions toward Oliver. This is not good.
Uh-oh, this is trouble. Monks is going to shake things up. This is only the beginning.
Oh, you got that right. This is Dickens, remember? Yeah, he's going to shake things up for sure. It's funny because that peacefulness at Rose Maylie's cottage,
Right.
It's almost too good to be true, you know?
It is.
You can't help but think, okay, Dickens is setting us up for something here.
Right, exactly. It is a nice contrast, though.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to see Oliver in that kind of idyllic setting after everything he's been through.
It is.
Going from the squalor of the workhouse to, like, you know, the beauty of the countryside. It really highlights those social disparities that Dickens was so good at capturing.
Exactly. He was a master at that. But anyway, yeah, back to Monks.
Right.
This guy's a total mystery at this point, wrapped in secrecy.
He's like a walking, talking plot twist.
I know, right?
You just know he's going to cause trouble.
Oh, he absolutely does. And as he starts interacting with Fagin, you start to get these little hints of what he's up to.
Okay.
It's like this puzzle slowly coming together. And you're just dying to know, like, what's his end game here? What's he really after?
Exactly. And then there's Nancy.
Oh, Nancy.
Still caught up in Fagin's web, but you can tell her conscience is really bothering her.
Oh, totally. That internal struggle is what makes her such a compelling character, I think.
Yeah.
She's torn between her loyalty to Fagin, you know, the only family she's ever known, and this growing concern for Oliver.
Right.
It's like, you know, classic Dickens, this battle between self-preservation and what's right.
Yeah, totally. And she makes a choice.
She does.
A risky one. She reaches out to Rose Maylie
I know.
to tell her about Monks' scheme.
Risking everything.
Oh, yeah.
That meeting on London Bridge, oh, man.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
You see how desperate she is, how much she wants to protect Oliver.
Yeah.
Even if it means betraying Fagin and everything she knows.
And Dickens really captures that emotional weight, you know?
Oh, he does, yeah. And it's just tragic because her act of kindness, it leads to her death.
Yeah.
Sikes murders her. It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's the real turning point in the story.
It is, you're right. Up to this point, it's been about Oliver's suffering.
Right.
But Nancy's death, it expands the focus.
Yeah.
It's like Dickens is saying, look, this isn't just about one kid. It's about this whole system that's broken.
Right. Yeah, he's showing us the consequences of all this injustice, not just for Oliver, but for everyone caught up in it.
Exactly. Nancy's death is a reminder of that cycle of violence, you know?
Yeah. But it lights a fire under everyone, doesn't it?
It does.
There's this urgency to bring Monks down, to expose him for what he is.
Yeah.
Mr. Brownlow takes charge, determined to find out the truth.
Yeah, and it's interesting how Dickens uses this whole pursuit of Monks to critique, like, the whole Victorian society.
Ah,
He shows us how the corruption goes way beyond Fagin's gang, you know?
right.
It reaches into the upper classes, the people in power.
It's like he's peeling back these layers
Exactly.
and showing us that the rot runs much deeper than we thought.
Exactly. And it all leads up to this confrontation where Monk's true motives are finally revealed.
Yeah, the big reveal.
We find out about Oliver's parents, the inheritance, the whole thing.
It's like all those little clues Dickens has been dropping along the way, they suddenly make sense. It's like this big puzzle, and we finally see the full picture.
It's satisfying, to finally have the truth out in the open.
It is.
But it's also unsettling, to think of what Monks did, how he tried to destroy Oliver's life.
Right. Even though justice prevails, you can't help but think about the trauma Oliver has endured.
Exactly. Dickens doesn't give us this simple, happy ending.
Right.
He acknowledges that the scars, they're still there.
Yeah, for sure. But what about Fagin? What do you make of his fate?
Oh, Fagin. His capture and execution, it's a tough one.
It is.
On the one hand, he represents that corrupting influence of poverty.
Yeah.
He preys on the vulnerable, keeps that cycle of crime going.
Right.
But then Dickens gives us these glimpses of his humanity.
Mm.
It makes you wonder what led him to this point.
Like, is he just a villain, or is he a product of his circumstances?
Exactly. And his final hours, filled with fear and despair.
Yeah.
It's a commentary on the justice system, how brutal it could be.
Right. The fact that Dickens describes his execution in such detail.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from it.
It's like he's making us confront the darker side of justice, even as we celebrate Oliver's triumph.
Exactly.
Right.
He wants us to think about the complexities, the moral gray areas.
Yeah, for sure. He doesn't let us off easy.
It's like he's saying, look, even in celebrating justice, don't forget the cost.
Yeah, there's always a cost. And, speaking of justice, it's interesting how Dickens plays with that idea throughout the whole story, showing us different sides of it. Like, Fagin's execution is one kind, but then there's Sikes. His end is, I don't know, almost Shakespearean.
Oh, totally. You mean how he becomes like a fugitive after what happens to Nancy, haunted by everything?
Exactly. He's on the run from the law, but he's also running from, like, his own conscience. Yeah. And that whole chase through London up on the rooftops, classic Dickens.
Oh, it's so intense. Dickens really makes you feel that claustrophobia, that sense of dread closing in on him.
I know. You can practically hear the city around him closing in.
Yeah, and then that final moment, trying to escape, and he accidentally hangs himself.
It's shocking, but at the same time, kind of fitting. Like fate stepped in.
Right, like a twisted form of justice.
Exactly. It's like what you were saying before. Dickens is showing us that justice isn't always this simple, straightforward thing.
It's messy. Sykes' death, even though it was an accident, it was a direct result of his own actions.
Right. What goes around comes around. And in the midst of all this, we finally see Oliver find a little bit of peace, right?
Yeah.
He ends up with Mr. Brownlow, gets to experience that love and care he was denied for so long.
The ending we all wanted for him, right?
I know. It's like this glimmer of hope. Even after everything he's been through, healing is possible. Love can triumph.
It's a powerful message. But even in that resolution, Dickens doesn't let us forget the trauma. Remember how Oliver goes to visit Nancy's grave?
Oh, yeah. That's such a powerful image. It's like, okay, maybe the wounds heal, but the scars are still there. They're a part of him.
It's such a nuanced ending. He gives us hope, but he's also realistic. Oliver's past, it shaped him. It will always be a part of his story.
And that's what makes Oliver Twist so timeless, right? It's not just an adventure or a feel-good story. It's about these deep issues: social injustice, human nature, the power of compassion.
You said it. Dickens makes you think, makes you feel, challenges you to look at the world around you.
Yeah, he does. And so we've come to the end of our deep dive into Oliver Twist. We've journeyed with Oliver through those dark streets of London, seeing the poverty, the crime, but also those moments of kindness. And we're left with this question: what echoes of Oliver's struggles do you see in our world today? What lessons can we take from his story as we face our own challenges?